Welcome to the Lubbock or Leave It podcast, the recruiting specific podcast on RedRaidersports.com. I'm joined by Ben Golan. I can't talk tonight. Ben Golan. And we're sponsored, as always, by Carnley Properties. Our good friend Clayton Carnley and his team in the greater Austin metro area. All of your real estate needs. When you're doing when you're going through a big life decision like that, you need people in your corner that know what they're talking about. And he's good people. He's a Red Raider, and everything we've heard is a smooth process working with their team. So we're going to add their contact info. Clayton's on the board. Give them a holler, and I'm sure y'all can work something out. Again, we thank Clayton Carnley and Carnley Properties for sponsoring the pod. Ben, how you doing, man?
I'm doing good. You were out at a football practice today, so I guess that means we're officially back now.
I know the coronavirus hasn't gotten me yet, so let's play some football. But yeah, no, I want to avoid that. But yeah, we'll get to that in a minute. But I think what we've been wanting to talk about, and what we're not going to spend like this whole multi-series, going through and dissecting, because it is so brand new, is name, image, likeness, NIL. And I thought this was the perfect day to start talking about it, because we've seen Texas Tech players be sponsored by, maybe starting a t-shirt company, hoodies, shorts. We've seen Cardinal Sports sponsorships. We've seen a lot of things. Yeah, one of the basketball players, Canes. Was it? Is it TJ Shannon? Is the Lubbock Restaurant Group, something like that? With anyway, that we've seen like a variety of these, right? But there's also the other end of this spectrum, where right off the bat you saw University of Miami, you saw Alabama. You heard Nick Saban. The famous quote that still resonates is that his quarterback is nearing seven figures in name, image, likeness, and it comes out that the Cash App has given him, I think, like $200K in sponsorship dollars. So it's wild. I mean, we've even seen the first high school senior forego his senior season. The prior 2023 number one recruit in the nation, Quinn Ewers of Southlake, just skipping senior season. He's now at Ohio State, and he signed another 5-6 figure deal, and it's just not out of hand, but a lot to take in at once, and to really say like what your opinion is. And I guess I'll stop short at that, and maybe just get your thoughts so far on what you've seen across college football.
Yeah, first of all, if I was Quinn Ewers and I was going into my senior year, I'd do the same exact thing that he did. Forget high school. I'm going to go get my $500,000 or whatever it is. So that was definitely a wise decision on his part. As far as just the general the tech deals we've seen, some local businesses, some like you mentioned, the t-shirt sales, nothing huge, but I think today's news was pretty noteworthy, and we're going to get into that.
Yeah, I think we'd seen a lot of different things around college football, but we were looking for something that was maybe unique to Tech. And when you think of like some of the program's bigger donors, now you think of Cody Campbell, you think of Double Eagle Energy, you think of John Sellers, right? And these guys that played at Tech and have gone on to have some tremendous success. And you started seeing on social media this, started I think with like Weston Wright and then TJ Storment and a few others. And they were posting, these images. So they were sponsored by Double Eagle. And so one of the first things I did is I texted Cody and said, hey, I'm seeing Double Eagle sponsorship, and, this, that, and the other, let me know when you have a chance to chat. I mean, he called me, within the hour. We had a chance to talk on the phone. And, before we go into that, Ben, I think the important thing is when we were talking about this, 2-3 months ago, before NLI was like an official thing, and we had kind of a roadmap, we talked about it, and we talked about Double Eagle, and we thought to ourselves, well, what is the upside of a company like that to market with a student athlete? And you can look at in a number of directions. And what I would say is I don't think they want it to be about the company, about the brand. They want it to be about Texas Tech football. And I think what makes this unique is it's not just those players, those starters, those rotational players that we mentioned, the guys that are 3-4 stars on Rivals. It's every player in the room. And so every offensive lineman, including the walk-ons, are getting this sponsorship, or this, whatever we call it, the NIL deal. And they're going to get, I believe it was $5,000 a year, so not too shabby, right? And I'm sure we'll get more details on all of this, but since then, since we'd had that conversation, Cody even went to social media himself and kind of added some of that detail. So I think what's unique, and I'll leave it at that, is that you can go to an offensive line recruit that you're battling for, somebody that you really want, and you can, pitch this as a unique thing. You can talk about not only is it a successful person, a successful company, et cetera, but this is someone that played football at Texas Tech. And I think even one of the things that Cody had mentioned was, in the past, Texas Tech offensive linemen, went to the NFL. That we need to, continue that tradition, things of that nature. So again, I'll leave it at that. But definitely now you have something that's unique to Texas Tech from one of their biggest owners.
Yeah, and your screen is frozen, by the way, but just, I thought it was cool. On one of the first days of the NIL, we saw the Miami gym that offered every player on the roster, money to, and you think, how does the gym profit from that? I would say a deal like this is, more showing Cody's and John's love for Texas Tech football and, just trying to help out in any way they can. So, if you're an offensive line recruit, you're thinking, hey, linemen, usually don't, they wouldn't get the publicity or the big money. This shows you that, hey, you come to Texas Tech, there's someone that, could sponsor you, and that could be, it's not going to be why you go to Tech, but it could be an extra little incentive, to want to become a Red Raider. If you're an offensive lineman. And, I thought it was cool. Coach Farmer, even tweeted about it. So it shows you that the coaches are all about it and that they're very, appreciative of, the opportunity that the players have been given. I just, it makes it even more cool for us that, Cody's an active Red Raider sports poster. So, cool deal all around. You're mute.
Nope, sorry about that. Absolutely, he'll get into it on the boards every week during the football season. So yeah, I mean, I think more to come there is where we'll leave it. But definitely wanted to talk about that as something specific to Texas Tech. Again, maybe taking a step back. I think that I don't have it pulled up, so I'm not going to try to name the company. But another interesting aspect of NIL to me, Ben, is that when you think marketing, they're always looking for the next thing, right? And so you look at a player that is very well known in Texas Tech circles, like an Eric Izukanma. He's a player who's on a preseason Big 12 type of list. Well, what you see him announcing this week is that he's signed with an agency that's going to help promote him in this NIL process. And so let's say Eric has a tremendous season and he goes through the entire season, puts up big numbers. I think you're starting to see some of these companies, reach back out and try to get help with some of the strategy in the NIL. So we'll see what happens next with that. But I mean, you've even seen an Ohio State player, even other players, I believe, from an example, getting sponsored by the local car dealership and getting a brand new truck to drive around. So, I mean, there are a lot of examples out there now of what's happening. And I think, what compares more closely to what we originally talked about with the University of Miami is what we just described with, Cody and what's going on. Now, maybe it's not as large as like, Canes Forever or whatever that group is called, but it's an example to other donors, to other business owners, to other local businesses in terms of what's possible with NIL. And I don't know, I think that is a pretty cool bright side. And especially for a college kid, could you imagine? I mean, I talk to my kids all the time. Hey, Dad used to do this. There's 7-Elevens here. There weren't in Houston, as an example. I'd be like, hey, Dad used to have these nachos for dinner in college. Just press the cheese button right here, because you're broke usually in college, right? And it's not a whole ton different for the student athletes. Yeah, they get all the food that they can eat at the facility, but, what if they're at home? What if it's later at night? And it's just good to know, probably it's a good security blanket to have $5K in the bank. Could you imagine in college if you're like, hey, $5K right here?
Yeah, I wouldn't have had to work my job as a cashier at Academy if I just got a nice little bonus like that. But yeah, I mean, just like you said, good news all around. We've seen Tyler Shuck get a bunch of deals already going. So, it'll be interesting to see what happens if he lives up to all the hype and, becomes, one of these NFL type draft picks, what kind of deals he could get, maybe during the season or even after the season.
Yeah, it's fascinating, and I don't think that's why I kind of said that at the beginning. We don't know anything just yet, so it's hard to really throw too many opinions out there. I think especially with the season comes, more eyeballs, more opportunities. You get into a new season, you kind of see what unfolds. But I do think that if you look at it's simply low hanging fruit. But if you look at guys like an Eric Uzukama, they do have that ceiling to blow up, to have a big season, and I think you'll see more of that as the season goes on, with different opportunities and folks kind of maybe seeing the value in this market. We say all that to say that an oil and gas company is probably not going to see a lot out of that, but the idea is to kind of give back and to kind of float all boats, if you will, for even the walk-ons, and everybody's kind of an equal. And then the offensive line coach gets to use that as a recruiting tactic. So I don't know, definitely interesting. Probably more to come on name, image, likeness. We'll have to maybe take one bite of the elephant at a time, as they say. Ben, what do you think?
Yeah, that sounds good.
So I know that we try to focus on recruiting, guys, but there's not a lot going on right now. I'll talk about a visit that I had to a high school, but what we wanted to fit in real quick, Ben, was I think it was over the weekend or early this week, the news kind of broke that Kyron Cumby, a former target for the Red Raiders, that had originally been at Illinois, is coming in as a walk-on with the idea of getting onto scholarship eventually, or when that spot presents itself, much like we've seen with a couple other guys here over the past year or two.
Yeah, and I typed up the roster scholarship situation today, so I got to go over the whole roster kinda. And Kyron Cumby, he was a guy who, when Matt Wells took over, you had Velton Gardner committed as a running back, but things were kind of up in the air. I think he was considering Kansas, where he ended up, and then Houston, I believe, also. So, Coach Wells and his staff brought Cumby in for a visit. He ended up sticking with Illinois, but he also had offers from BYU, Colorado, Iowa State, SMU, Washington State, and several others. So this is a 3-star prospect that you're able to bring home, back to his home state. He's from Plano. His dad's a Red Raider. Keith Cumby, I believe, was a defensive lineman in the 90s. So, you'll definitely take a walk-on, prospect of his caliber. Didn't have great stats at Illinois, but again, he was a younger player, and one season and then one COVID year. So who knows what to make of that? But a good depth at worst, and hopefully you can unlock something in Kyron Cumby over here.
Yeah, it's always hard to go back and remember all the details of a kid's recruitment, but I definitely remember the kids that were just fun to talk to and that were just good kids. And so I definitely remember Kyron as that, and I know that they had brought him in late. Those are sometimes ones that you just expect to flip, especially with the aspect of his dad being a Red Raider. But hey, it's come full circle, and I think that he can contribute. So we'll see what happens.
And you think of the portal now, and you keep the relationships going. He's the second guy, in a couple of weeks. Robert Wooten being the other, the guy who you brought in out of high school for a visit. He commits elsewhere, but whatever happens to a situation, and then he transfers in. So shows you the importance of keeping those relationships.
Absolutely, it's a big circle. I believe the other young man that left Virginia Tech committed to Illinois. So yeah. everybody's shuffling to the left and to the right. And yeah, I mean, that's another onion that keeps unfolding, right? I mean, the transfers, the way that you add kids. I mean, this is a young man that left the scholarship situation to be where he wants to be, use that one-time transfer, and eventually, have his scholarship spot that he comes and earns over the next semester. While he gets acclimated to Tech. So, I mean, he's already there. And, I think we talk about it all the time, periodically, whether it's in the season or in the off season, but recruiting is about creating competition. And I think when you can do that, when you can have the right mixture. It's very, very unscientific and not easy to do by any means. But when you have that mixture of the transfers, the high school recruits, and the experience, when that does come together, I think that can be a really good thing. But creating competition and building that and getting to that point, I think is kind of more important as you look at the roster and kind of what you need or what spots you're trying to fill in recruiting. Because you look at certain positions, I'm sure on your roster breakdown you could go through, but ones that speak to me would be quarterback, running back. I mean, those rooms are completely different than what they were a year ago, and in a very good way. And so it's good to kind of see that progression, but also probably even more interesting to see what some of the grad transfers can do. Like a Marquise Waters and some of these other guys. Like, what do they bring to the table? So that'll be interesting to follow for me.
Yeah, creating competition at running back. I think the depth chart there you look is just awesome, and 0 super seniors too, right? The oldest guy you have is Chadarius Townsend. He still has another year next year if he wants it, and then you'll be bringing in, Bryson Donnell, who's committed. So that room is looking very good for the future. Running back especially.
Well, again, good to see them continue adding and always looking for the next thing out there. So we'll see what that looks like. We're getting into the season, almost 20 days until kickoff. So I don't think you'll see as many transfers, and I don't know how many other additions you'll see, but be interesting nonetheless. But in terms of what I did today. And I'm sorry, guys, I don't know why my video keeps freezing or what this is going to look like on recording, but you'll bear with. If you've already made it this far, then you just want to hear us talking. I went to Arlington Martin today because one of the big mysteries has been, I just touched on that mixture of transfers and high school guys. We've seen the coaches last year take a total of 12 or 13 high school guys and then fill out the rest with transfers and filling spots in different ways, right? Not just 1 year, 2 year guys. Just like we talk about, Cumby's got plenty of years left. So there's a good mixture. But from a high school standpoint, in a class of 2022 standpoint, we know that there's some high priority targets. We know there's some guys that they would take that they really like, but there are not a lot of them. And so one guy we talked about a lot is Arlington Martin linebacker Travell Johnson. And I had a chance to go out there because he, the elephant in the room is he's a longtime Texas commit. And so he really wasn't into talking after these visits or giving a lot of detail. And so I figured I'd just go out there and, have a conversation with him. And so I think, long story short, he's been there 3 or 4 times already. I think he's familiar with Lubbock. I think he's familiar with the coaches. He did tell me he's got friends that live in the area. So half the visits were to see his friends. But he just so happened to see the coaches and be on campus as well. So, you put 2 and 2 together. I think that commitment is, I wouldn't call it soft. I mean, he's definitely committed to Texas, but I think the coaches are giving him something to think about. And I haven't confirmed it. I didn't ask him about it. I thought it'd be weird. But I did hear from, a few places that maybe there's a girlfriend involved, and maybe that's the friend that we're talking about. Who knows, right? I don't really ever, configure puppy love into the equation when we're talking recruiting. But I do think, 3 or 4 visits, saying the right things about the coaches, the opportunity, he didn't shy away from that. And so I think I texted you earlier, he had Texas gloves on, but Texas Tech bracelets on, like the little plastic bracelets. So, I think it's too early to say, but he kept saying, if I make another decision. So, I think a lot of people are on a wait and see mode when it comes to the team this year and, the future of the program, if you will, coming off of a couple losing seasons. And I think that's where Travell is.
Yeah, and if the coaches, don't make another linebacker offer, if they do want to add a high school linebacker, I would definitely say Travell Johnson is the favorite or the guy to keep an eye on, because just looking at the rest of the offer list, I mean, they wanted Jordan Crook. He just committed to Arkansas. Jeremy Patton just committed to Baylor. So the options aren't really there. So you're kind of relying at this point, unless they find other targets, maybe they feel, better about Travell Johnson than it appears. I mean, I don't know. So he also has a brother who plays on the team. I don't think he's as highly ranked, but he did visit with Travell, I believe, the last time they came a couple of weeks ago in late July. So just another thing to consider. Maybe they offer the brother, a preferred walk on or something like that, and that helps, flip him. Just thinking out loud here.
Yeah, we didn't get a chance to do all that or get into that detail, but I will look up the roster and kind of see. There were a couple of big boys out there that definitely have some talent. I talked to the 2023s that Tech had offered as well. Got some quotes from them. Javian Toviano is a DB. I mean, I don't feel like that's a realistic target. Maybe people don't like to hear that, but he's a national guy. He's gonna go to a blue blood program. If I had to guess, he looks ready like right now, and he's just starting his junior year.
Updated rankings today. Javian Toviano is 15 in the country. So
yeah, he's the real deal. So, but also Sergio Snyder, he's another guy that's the real deal. He's coming over from Nolan Catholic, and he was very kind of shy and bashful guy, but you can already see the build with him, and I think he can only continue to get bigger. I'm a big fan of the Arlington Martin coaches and kind of how they handled things at practice. I can tell that where they may not have strengths, they're definitely going to put together a pretty dang good team, because I haven't even mentioned Ernest Green. They didn't interview him because he's pretty much like A&M, Stanford, but he's a man child, and a lot of people, that's where Miles Garrett went to school. So a lot of kind of people make that comparison. I don't know. I feel like that would put pressure, but he's just a baby, and he's just huge, and he's just a presence. And so I think I'll definitely be going to check those guys out and see them play. But I mean, that's pretty much at a high level, what we can share on Johnson. I'll certainly write a story with his quotes on Red Raider Sports. We'll share all that there. But I think the interest in Texas Tech is real. I guess I'll leave it at that. So anytime, you can get a flip from Texas, or, see what happens there, that's definitely an entertaining storyline. But man, above and beyond that, Ben, there's not much recruiting going on here before the season. Is there anything else maybe you wanted to note?
I'm gonna go see Hut Graham and Gunter. They're coming to play Frisco Christian in a scrimmage on Friday. So I'm just curious to see him. Obviously committed as a safety. Is he going to play strictly quarterback? Is he going to play some DB? I'm just interested to see, what he looks like and how he runs and things like that. So we'll catch up with him, and I'll have a story this weekend.
Yeah, man, definitely need some video. I remember seeing him put on a show in that state championship game, and it looks like he's gotten taller and leaner. So, yeah, definitely looking forward to seeing Hut. I'm trying to make it out there. We'll see what happens. I know that tomorrow night's the RRS get together, so we're trying to make that as well. But definitely a lot going on here before the season, man. If there's a lack of recruiting information, we'll try to just maybe get into some different aspects of that. I was thinking maybe next time, Ben, we talk about this 2021 class and who we expect to see, because you start to remind people you've got that 4-game window where you don't burn your shirt. And so I think we can talk about some of those guys that are going to factor in from that 2021 class, and maybe extrapolate that to some of the commits in the 2022 class. But anything else you want to hit on, Ben?
That sounds good to me.
All right, guys. Thanks again to Carnley Properties. We will provide Clayton's contact info and definitely reach out to him and his team if you have any real estate needs in the Austin area. For Ben Golan, I'm Matt Clare, and this has been the Lubbock or Leave It podcast on Red Raider Sports.